Kelly's Heroes is one of the most beloved war movies ever made. Clint Eastwood leading a gang of soldiers to steal a fortune in Nazi gold. But the version you have seen is not the movie they actually made. Did you know the studio quietly cut the real ending and may have destroyed it forever? Did you know one of its biggest stars clinically died in the middle of filming? That includes a shocking link to one of the greatest westerns ever made. Number 1. The studio cut the real ending. The version of Kelly's Heroes you have watched is not the full film. Before it ever reached theaters, the studio took a knife to it. The head of MGM at the time was a man named James Aubrey. He had a nickname in Hollywood. People called him the Smiling Cobra. Aubrey ordered about 20 minutes of footage removed from the movie. And these were not random trims. They were the quiet, human scenes. One deleted moment showed Kelly and Big Joe alone in a barn at night, talking about how much they hated the war and why Kelly had been unfairly demoted. It gave the whole story a reason to exist. The original ending was different too. In one cut version, Kelly simply drives away, while the other soldiers shout that he is going the wrong direction. Clint Eastwood was furious. He said the cuts had dehumanized the film and turned it into nothing but explosions. He even offered to help put the missing scenes back. The studio said no. It just wanted to rush the movie out and make money fast. That lost footage has never been found. It may be gone forever. Number 2. It was filmed in a country that no longer exists. Kelly's Heroes takes place in France during World War II. But it was not filmed anywhere near France. The entire movie was shot far to the east, in a nation that has since vanished from the map. That country was Yugoslavia. Today, its land is split into places like Croatia and Serbia. Much of the film was made in a small Croatian village called Vižanada, tucked on a peninsula near the sea. Other scenes used a city called Novi Sad and the crumbling ruins of an old palace. So why go all the way to Yugoslavia to fake France? The answer is surprisingly simple. It came down to tanks. In the late 1960s, Yugoslavia was one of the only countries on Earth whose army still owned working World War II vehicles. They had real Sherman tanks that still ran. For a movie built around huge tank battles, that was gold. Renting a whole army's worth of vintage machines in one place made everything easier. The filmmakers chased the hardware, not the history. A story about the fields of France was quietly brought to life in a country that would not even survive to see the next century. Number 3. The fearsome German Tigers were Russian fakes. The most tense scenes in Kelly's Heroes involved the German Tiger tank. It was the most feared tank of the war, huge and deadly. When one rolls onto the screen, the whole mood changes. Here is the secret. Those are not real Tiger tanks. Real working Tigers were almost impossible to find by 1970. So the filmmakers cheated. They took Soviet tanks called T-34s and rebuilt them to look like German Tigers. The Yugoslav military did the modifications. A Russian tank was dressed up to play a German one. Fans of military history often spot the difference, since the shape is not quite right. But for most viewers, the illusion works perfectly. Even the American tanks in the film are unusual. They are a rare version of the Sherman that is hard to find today. So almost none of the armor on screen is quite what it claims to be. The terrifying enemy that Kelly's men must outwit was really a friendly stand-in wearing a costume. The scariest machine in the movie was, underneath the metal, on their side all along. Number 4. Donald Sutherland actually died on set. Donald Sutherland plays Oddball, the movie's lovable tank commander. What happened to him during filming is almost too frightening to believe. He came to Yugoslavia for a single day of shooting. He ended up gone for 6 weeks. Sutherland caught spinal meningitis, a severe infection around the brain and spine. The local hospital did not have the right antibiotics. His body began to shut down, and he slipped into a coma. For a few seconds, doctors say, he actually died. Sutherland later described the experience in chilling detail. He said he saw a blue tunnel and a white light and felt himself being pulled toward it. Part of him wanted to let go and stop fighting, but he dug in and held on. His condition was so grave that when his wife was told to fly to his side, the message warned her he would probably be dead before she landed. Somehow, he survived. He returned to set and finished the film. The man who brought so much fun and lightness to the movie had come within seconds of never leaving that hospital alive. Number 5. His wife was caught in an FBI sting. Donald Sutherland's brush with death is only half of the strangest story on this set. The other half belongs to his wife. Her name was Shirley Douglas, and she was a fierce political activist. She flew to Yugoslavia to be at her husband's side while he fought for his life. Thankfully, he recovered. But Shirley did not simply fly home. While still overseas, she got tangled up in something dangerous. According to reports, she tried to buy hand explosives meant for a militant group back in the United States. It sounds like a scene from a thriller. And it ended like one. The person she tried to buy them from was secretly an undercover FBI agent. The moment that gave her away was almost unbelievable. She reportedly tried to pay for the explosives with a personal check, with her own name printed right on it. So while Kelly's fictional soldiers were busy stealing gold on camera, a very real drama involving explosives and federal agents was unfolding just off-screen. Truth, as they say, can be stranger than the movies. Number 6. A future legendary director was hiding in the cast. Look closely at the nuns in Kelly's Heroes, and you will spot a piece of Hollywood history. One of them is a young man who would later become one of the biggest comedy directors alive. His name is John Landis. Years later, he would make Animal House, The Blues Brothers, Trading Places, and Michael Jackson's Thriller. But in 1970, he was a nobody. He was a lowly production assistant on the film, running errands and helping out. He also snuck into a scene dressed as one of 3 nuns. On that set, Landis made a bold promise to Donald Sutherland. He told him that one day he would direct his own movies. Sutherland, charmed, promised right back that he would star in Landis films if that day ever came. It did. Landis became a huge success, and Sutherland kept his word, appearing in a couple of his films. There is one more twist. It was during this very trip that Landis saw a local burial ritual that later inspired his horror classic, An American Werewolf in London. A future master was quietly taking notes. Number 7. The ending is secretly a spaghetti western. The climax of Kelly's Heroes has a strange, thrilling feel that many viewers cannot quite place. There is a reason for that. It is a hidden tribute to a completely different kind of movie. Before this film, Clint Eastwood became a star in Italian westerns directed by Sergio Leone. The most famous is The Good, The Bad, and the Ugly. Those films are known for tense standoffs where enemies stare each other down before a final showdown. Kelly's Heroes copies that on purpose. Near the end, Kelly and 2 others must face a German tank in the town square. Instead of playing it like a war scene, the film plays it like a Western duel. The music shifts to sound like a Leone score. The soundtrack even adds the jingle of cowboy spurs, though nobody is wearing any. 3 men squaring off against a tank suddenly feels like 3 gunslingers on a dusty street. It is a wink to everyone who knew Eastwood from his cowboy days. A World War II movie briefly turns into the greatest Western that never was. Number 8. George Kennedy turned down a fortune to avoid it. One of the film's best roles almost went to a different actor entirely. The tough sergeant known as Big Joe is played by Telly Savalas. But he was not the first choice. The part was first offered to a big star of the time named George Kennedy. Kennedy had just won an Academy Award and was a major name. The studio wanted him badly. They offered him $300,000 to take the role. In today's money, that is a small fortune. And he said no. Kennedy simply did not like the character and passed on the whole thing. That decision opened the door for Telly Savalas. Savalas took the role of Big Joe and made it unforgettable. His bald head, his gravel voice, and his no-nonsense attitude became one of the best parts of the movie. He would later ride that same energy to fame as television's Kojak. Sometimes turning down a job changes 2 careers at once. George Kennedy walked away from a fortune, and in doing so, handed Telly Savalas a role that fit him like a glove. Number 9. The squad's only woman was cut as she boarded the plane. Kelly's Heroes is a story about men. A rough, all-male band of soldiers chasing gold. But it was almost different. The original script included 1 woman in the group. The role was given to an actress named Ingrid Pitt. She had already worked alongside Clint Eastwood in another war film, so she seemed like a perfect fit. She packed her bags and prepared to fly to Yugoslavia to begin filming. Then came the phone call. Pitt later described the awful timing. She said she was practically climbing onto the airplane itself when word reached her that her part had been cut from the film. Just like that, her role was gone before she ever left the ground. The filmmakers had decided the story worked better with no woman in the squad at all. So Ingrid Pitt never made the trip. The band of brothers stayed exactly that, all brothers. One actress got as close as the airport steps to being part of a classic, only to be turned around at the very last second. Number 10. Eastwood was trapped in a movie he did not choose. Clint Eastwood is the face of Kelly's Heroes, yet he almost had nothing to do with it. Eastwood only agreed to the film for one reason. His close friend and mentor, a director named Don Siegel, was set to direct it. Eastwood trusted Siegel completely and signed a contract to star. Then everything changed. Siegel got stuck finishing another movie and had to drop out. But Eastwood had already signed. He was locked in by his contract, tied to a film whose director had just walked away. A new director named Brian Hutton stepped in to take over. Eastwood and Hutton had worked together the year before on another war movie, so it was not a disaster. But it was not the plan either. Eastwood was now committed to a project he had joined only as a favor to someone who was no longer there. It is a good reminder that even huge stars do not always control their own careers. One of the most famous actors in the world made this classic because a piece of paper would not let him leave. Number 11. The title was designed to fool you. The name Kelly's Heroes sounds simple and heroic, but Clint Eastwood hated it, and he believed the studio picked it to trick audiences. The film went through several names before release. At first it was called The Warriors, then it became Kelly's Warriors. Only at the end did it turn into Kelly's Heroes. Eastwood thought the final choice was a cheap move. At the time, there was a very popular television comedy set in a prisoner of war camp called Hogan's Heroes. Eastwood believed the studio changed the movie's name to sound similar, hoping fans of the show would buy tickets by mistake. He flatly called it a dumb title. He felt it made his serious war film sound like a silly sitcom spin-off. Whether or not the trick worked, the name stuck forever. Today, nobody thinks of Kelly's Heroes as a copycat. It stands on its own. But its own leading man always saw the title as a marketing gimmick, chosen to ride the coattails of a hit TV show it had nothing to do with. Number 12. The gold heist was ripped from a real-world record. The plot of Kelly's Heroes sounds like pure fantasy. Soldiers stealing a fortune in Nazi gold from behind enemy lines. But the idea was pulled from something real. For decades, the Guinness Book of World Records listed the greatest robbery in human history. It was not a bank job by masked crooks. It happened in the chaos at the end of World War II. As Germany collapsed in 1945, an enormous stash from the nation's gold reserve went missing. The amount was staggering. It was valued at around $2.5 billion. Much of that treasure was never fully recovered or explained. The story fascinated writers and became the seed for this movie. In the film, the missing riches are shrunk down to a stash of 14,000 gold bars, worth about $16 million. Kelly and his men simply decide to grab it for themselves. So while the characters are invented, the temptation was not. Somewhere in the fog of a real war, a real fortune truly did vanish. The movie just imagined who might have been brave or greedy enough to take it. Number 13. Archie Bunker is hiding in the cast. Kelly's Heroes is packed with famous faces, but one of them was about to become a television giant. The gruff American general in the film, named General Colt, is played by an actor named Carroll O'Connor. When the movie came out in 1970, O'Connor was a respected character actor, but not yet a household name. That was about to change in a huge way. Just months after Kelly's Heroes hit theaters, O'Connor landed the role of a lifetime. He became Archie Bunker on the sitcom All in the Family. That show became one of the most important comedies in television history. Archie Bunker, the loud and stubborn working man, made O'Connor one of the most recognized people in America. So the same actor barking orders as a war general was, almost overnight, transformed into the most talked-about character on television. Watching Kelly's Heroes today feels a little strange because of this. There is Archie Bunker himself, in a full military uniform, years before most of the country would ever learn his name. Number 14. The attack plane is 10 years too new. Kelly's Heroes tries hard to look like 1944. Most of the time it succeeds, but there is one glaring mistake in the sky that sharp eyes can catch. In one scene, an American fighter plane swoops down and attacks Kelly's group. There is just one problem. That plane did not exist during World War II. It is a Yugoslav military aircraft called the Soko 522. It was a two-seat training plane, and it did not even take to the skies until 1955. That is a full 10 years after the war the movie is set in. The filmmakers simply used what the local Air Force had on hand and painted American markings on it. Getting real World War II fighter planes to fly was far harder than getting old tanks to roll. So they made do. Most viewers never notice. The plane looks vintage enough at a glance. But to anyone who knows their aircraft, that fighter is a time traveler. It flew into a war that had ended a decade before it was ever built. Number 15. The enemy commander is mocking Marlon Brando. Near the end of Kelly's Heroes, the American soldiers face off against a German tank commander. He is played by an actor named Carl Otto Alberti, and his performance is a hidden joke that many people miss. Film fans have long pointed out that the character is a gentle parody of a very famous role. Years earlier, Marlon Brando played a thoughtful German officer named Christian Diestel in a serious war drama called The Young Lions. Brando's soldier was handsome, conflicted, and quietly troubled by the war. The tank commander in Kelly's Heroes seems to poke fun at that exact type. He looks the part of the noble German officer, but he is dropped into a goofy heist comedy where the Americans just want his gold. It flips the serious image on its head. The joke rewards viewers who know their classic war films. A character built to look deep and tragic ends up sharing a friendly cigarette with the enemy and helping them crack open a bank. It is a sly nod buried inside the movie's biggest showdown. Number 16. The captain of the Love Boat is in here too. Kelly's Heroes keeps surprising you with future television stars. Watch for a soldier named Moriarty. He is played by an actor named Gavin MacLeod. In 1970, MacLeod was a familiar supporting player who popped up in many films and shows. But his biggest fame was still ahead of him. Soon after, he joined the beloved comedy, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, playing the witty writer Murray. Then came the role he is most remembered for. MacLeod became Captain Stubing, the kind and cheerful captain on the hit series The Love Boat. For years, millions of viewers welcomed him into their living rooms every week as he steered that ship. So the same face you see here as a rough World War II soldier would later become one of the friendliest captains on television. It is a fun reminder of how many careers were quietly passing through this one movie. A future sitcom star and a future ship's captain were both just faces in the crowd, marching toward a fortune in gold. Number 17. Oddball was the first hippie of World War II. Donald Sutherland's character, Oddball, does not belong in 1944, and that is entirely the point. Oddball is a hippie, decades before hippies existed. He talks in a laid-back, dreamy way. He believes in good vibrations and warns his friends to stop giving off bad energy. His most famous line begs another soldier to knock it off with the negative waves. He decorates his tanks with cheerful paint and treats war like an inconvenient bummer. In a movie set during the 1940s, he sounds exactly like a young person from the 1960s. This was no accident. Kelly's Heroes came out in 1970, when hippie culture was everywhere and the country was tired of the Vietnam War. Sutherland dropped that modern attitude straight into a World War II story on purpose. It made Oddball feel fresh, funny, and a little rebellious. Fans adored him. His strange peace and love talk became some of the most quoted material in the film. A soldier who seemed to wander in from 20 years in the future became the coolest man in the whole army. Number 18. The theme song went number 1 in South Africa. Kelly's Heroes has a catchy song that plays over the beginning and end. It is called Burning Bridges, performed by a group known as the Mike Curb Congregation. The tune is gentle and a little haunting, an odd but perfect match for a war comedy, and it became a real hit, though in a surprising place. In the United States, the song did fairly well. It climbed to number 34 on the main pop chart in early 1971. That was a solid showing. But halfway around the world, it exploded. In South Africa, Burning Bridges did not just chart. It reached the very top and stayed at number 1 for 5 straight weeks. A song written for an American war movie somehow became the biggest hit in a country thousands of miles away. The film's full musical score came from a famous composer named Lalo Schifrin, the same man behind the iconic Mission Impossible theme. So the movie's music had serious talent behind it, and one soft little tune from it quietly conquered the charts of another continent. Number 19. The songwriter later ran a state. The story behind Burning Bridges gets even stranger when you look at the man who helped make it. His name was Mike Curb. In the world of Kelly's Heroes, he was a music man. He led the singing group on the song and ran the record company that released the soundtrack. He was a rising star in the music business. But Mike Curb had a second act that almost nobody sees coming. He left the world of hit songs and stepped into politics. and he did not aim small. Curb was eventually elected to one of the most powerful jobs in the largest state in the country. He became the Lieutenant Governor of California. That is the #2 political office in a state of millions of people. So the same man tied to a soft tune in a war caper went on to help run California itself. It is a wild jump from movie soundtracks to the halls of government. The person behind one of the film's most memorable pieces of music ended up with real power over an entire state. Number 20. The shoulder patches hide the squad's hometown. Kelly's Heroes never really stops to tell you where its soldiers come from. The men are too busy staying alive and chasing gold to swap life stories. But the movie does quietly reveal the answer, if you know where to look. The clue is stitched right onto their uniforms. Each soldier wears a small shoulder patch shaped like a blue crosshair. That patch is real. It belongs to the 35th Infantry Division, an actual United States Army unit from the war. And that division was made up of soldiers from a specific part of the country. Its men came from the heartland states of Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. So without a single line of dialogue, the costumes tell you exactly who these characters are supposed to be. They are farm country boys from the middle of America, dropped into the chaos of Europe. It is the kind of tiny, honest detail that rewards a close and curious viewer. The movie whispers the truth about its heroes, and it hides that whisper in plain sight on their sleeves. Beneath the explosions and the wisecracks, Kelly's Heroes is about ordinary men who stopped fighting for medals and started fighting for themselves. So here is our question. If you found that gold behind enemy lines, would you grab it and run, or do the right thing? Tell us below, and hit subscribe, because every week we dig up the secrets Hollywood buried in the films you thought you knew.